Welcome to this studio session on catalyzing a sustainable blue economy. In line with the broader conference theme of this year's Jakarta Futures Conference on securing seas and strengthening cooperation, the theme of our discussion this morning is scaling ocean-based industries while being mindful of sustainability and preserving biodiversity and the coastal livelihoods of people in this Indo-Pacific region. So I'm joined by two speakers whom I'll introduce shortly. We have first Ms. Tina Joton, who's a former member of parliament from Mauritius. And we also have Ben Shonalhaz, Legislative Staff Officer 3 at the Office of the President in the Philippines. Please forgive me if I mispronounced any of those names. So they'll be joining us for this conversation very shortly, but to set a very brief context, we are all aware that the blue economy holds immense potential to unlock sustainable prosperity, but that depends entirely on striking the right balance between growth, that's economic growth, and ensuring that we have healthy oceans. Why? Because oceans sustain both lives and livelihoods, feed billions, regulate the climate, and drive innovation in areas like clean energy and biotechnology. But at the same time, we are also cognizant that with the great opportunities lies great challenges, or the possibility for great challenges. And in this case, in the case of the blue economy, the challenges here include unchecked extraction, climate change, pollution, and so on. So shortly, we'll be exploring how partnerships, financing, and governance can make the balance of achieving this balance a reality for the Indo-Pacific region. And I'll dive right into the discussion that we have. And because we are constrained of time, I'll go to you, Ms. Tina, and begin with the first question. As a member of parliament, a former member of parliament from Mauritius, we know your economy is deeply tied to the ocean. So I ask, what do you see as the most urgent steps that governments should take to scale blue economy initiatives and while protecting marine ecosystems?
Thank you. So I'll just dive directly into the subject. So when we speak about blue economy, which I say the blue, I have to talk a little bit here about Mauritius. So I have to say Mauritius is just a little tiny dot in the Indian Ocean. It is a little island with only 1,979 square kilometers, but with an EEZ, with an exclusive economic zone of 2.3 square kilometers, which makes it the 5th largest EEZ in the world. So yes, the blue counts a lot for us. And I have to say that, without being sarcastic, that with an inexorable near depletion of our resources on land, we have nearly no other alternative than to churn the ocean. And I don't mean it in a bad way. We speak about the churning of the ocean in Hindu philosophy, which is called the sagar manthan, but to extract what you call the jewels. So here I'm speaking in that sense to be able to extract the jewels, to make the ocean be what you called in a French term, la mer nourricière, which means the oceans which feed the people and the population and takes care of the biodiversity. And I have to start here by speaking about the Wakashu oil spill, which happened in Mauritius in 2020, because I want to reflect on that to see how it changed the way we were thinking and how it strengthened collaboration and also the way forward as urgent steps, as you asked. So when the Wakashu oil spill happened in 2020, I have to say that we were not prepared for it. Mauritius was definitely not prepared to face an oil spill of that extent. And we were working with international bodies like the UN, EU, and a lot of other agencies to work on what you called contingencies, plans, but nothing was prepared as such. We had people and trainers in disaster management, but when this came, it came so suddenly, and that no one was prepared and no one knew exactly how to deal with the situation. And here, I have to say how important is collaboration, especially regional collaboration and international collaboration. Like imagine Mauritius being a small island, especially a developing economy. We do not hold the financial resources to be able to marshal things at such a large extent. So I have here to say that we are very grateful for all the countries which came ahead to help and collaborate, including the international agencies, UN, UNDP, India, Japan, and so many other countries which sent us experts, not just expert divers, but even experts in training and oil spill. And we had a crisis committee set up. And when we speak about the steps that we need to ensure that blue economy initiatives are scaled up, I have here to talk about education. Education, which means both formal and non-formal. And why I speak about the MP Wakasho is because the way the whole country geared up to face this crisis was amazing. I was the MP in that constituency at that time. When I went there, I have to say my heart was really torn apart to see our ocean, which is, you know, our pride, and to be in such a state. The blue sea was completely dark. But within hours, within days, the whole population got together. As we say in French, pour mettre la main dans la pâte, meaning to help together. We had volunteers, we had the youth, we had the NGOs, we had government officials, we had people coming from international bodies coming together to try to see how to help. So what we did with some kind of training and even, capacity building, as I called it, was to build some kind of artisanal booms to try to contain that oil in the sea. So everyone was doing it, from fishermen, the women, the kids, the youth, everyone together. And it worked. It helped to contain the oil at, of course, it's not the solution, but that was what you called a first step, a reactive step, before coming up with other ways. So coming back to your question, I think capacity building, financial resources, cooperation, regional cooperation, international cooperation is very, very important, especially for small island developing state and developing economies. You know, we need the support from the I would say, from the global south, we need the global north. We need the EU, we need the agencies to come up with help, and to come up even to help us in advocating for what we need. And just a last sentence, I know I'm short of time. Mm-hmm. If I speak about climate change and how we are threatened, our very existence is threatened by climate change. So even that, we're fighting and struggling to get adequate climate financing. Mm-hmm. So maybe I'll speak about it later. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Tina. And we'll pick that thought right from where you've stopped. But I want to come to you, Ven. And my question is the Philippines, where you come from, like many other Indo-Pacific nations, is highly dependent on coastal resources. Now, what are the key governance or legislative measures that you think can help mitigate the trade-offs between economic growth and conservation goals?
Thank you for that question. And before I delve into the answers, I would like to thank ORF and CSIS Indonesia for having us here and for this important conversation. And warm greetings to our audience tuning in from both here and across the Indo-Pacific. So in my experience, mitigating the trade-offs between economic growth and conservation requires a bold and decisive governance anchored in long-term sustainability. In my experience, a top priority in every country should be that the passage of a national blue economy framework or a law which would align marine-based industries with climate resilience, with biodiversity protection, for instance, and inclusive development. Also, strengthening maritime spatial planning is also crucial because it allows for zoning of ocean spaces in a way that supports both economic use and conservation. This must be done as well in consultation with local communities, which is very important, the fisher folks and the indigenous people, because they are the ones who are going to be to benefit those spatial planning. Another crucial step is improving enforcement against illegal fishing, for instance, and unreported and unregulated use of marine resources, while integrating adaptive management in fishing zones, which will ensure our seas remain protected and resilient. And finally, our country should mainstream blue carbon ecosystems, which such as mangroves and seagrass beds, into our climate commitments. That would allow access to emerging markets for carbon and biodiversity credits, turning conservation into a national asset.
Great. Thanks a lot. We are pressed for time, but on to my last question for each of you. So, Tina, on the question of financing, I know I cut you off before you completed that thought. I'd like to hear from you how small island developing states can attract investments for the blue economy. And as you talk about that, also mention very briefly, if you could prioritize one blue economy action, or if you could advocate for the prioritizing of one blue economy action in the foreseeable future, what would that be?
Thank you. So, as I was saying earlier, be it the blue economy, be it the green, the first priority is finance, adequate financing, adequate cooperation. And here, if I speak about financing, especially if your question is around SIDS, I would like to say that maybe we need a kind of innovative finance mechanism. Like recently, the Seychelles launched what you call the blue bonds, which we are still yet to do. So blue bonds, green bonds, or maybe a kind of mixing of different collective financial techniques that can appeal to the investors. And I would say that governance and policy plays a very important role here. And it is very important to have that kind of coherence and that kind of what I called ecosystem zoning, as you rightly mentioned. And you also mentioned community empowerment, which is so important, as I explained in the Wakasho oil spill, how we saw how communities can come up together as first emergency responders to any situation. So it is very important that they be skilled, that they be trained, they be sensitized. So for formal and informal training programs, and I would say here again cooperation, because by international agencies, by those having expertise from the North, by the EU, or even the Indo-Pacific, I think it's called the NACA. Maybe we can learn and we can have their experts coming to SIDS, to Mauritius, to Seychelles, to have that kind of exchange of know-how and skills. And it is so important. And you also spoke about mangrove. Yes. I have to say that Mauritius, for instance, we embarked on a series of restoration. And especially along the coast where the MV Wakasho oil spill happened. And mangrove plantation, together with what we call shrimp farming, which was a kind of innovative aquaculture system, is helping to restore the biodiversity and even allow for what you call carbon sequestration and ensuring sustainable yield and water quality. And last but not the least, on ecotourism, especially Mauritius. I would say that our first driver for GDP depends on tourism. And when we talk here about tourism, I would say that tourism that drives biodiversity gains, for instance, wildlife culture, diving, or experiences that ensure that we insensitivize conservation. Thank you.
Thank you. And very lastly to you, Vin, from the legislative angle, what opportunities do you see for harmonizing standards across the Indo-Pacific, and for you as well, if you would advocate for the prioritizing of one blue economy action?
Sure, thank you very much. So as for harmonizing standards across the Indo-Pacific, regional frameworks like the ASEAN, for instance, and the Coral Triangle Initiative presents valuable opportunities for coordination. And in my case, the Philippines could work with neighbors, not just here in the Indo-Pacific, but across the Indo-Pacific, to establish common standards on sustainable fisheries, for instance, seafood traceability, and marine protected area management. Developing digital maritime corridors as well is important through interoperable vessel tracing and carbon reporting protocols. It will further integrate regional economies while ensuring environmental safe practice. And if I'm going to prioritize a blue economy action, it would be scaling up community-led climate resilient aquaculture and seaweed farming, because this approach to me is inclusive, nature-based, and economically viable for everyone, and especially to the local communities, which directly benefits from coastal livelihoods, and it improves their quality of life as well. So that would be my top priority.
Thank you. Thanks a lot to both of you for the valuable insights. To summarize, what I've heard is that securing sustainability for the blue economy is both an environmental and economic imperative. And so we will end at that. Thank you to our speakers. And thank you all for joining us.